I think we're ready to kick off. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Adam Roberts. Again, I'm with Southern Cross University Metro campuses, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth. We've got quite a few of our SCU Ventures colleagues here today. Myself, I'll be presenting, and then we have John Crowder, who'll be running us through some data on visas, how to apply for visas, finances, and genuine student requirements, and all of those updates. So first of all, thank you for joining. We encourage you to get your questions ready. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. We'll get to as many of them as we can today after the session. We will be able to stay on for a bit longer than an hour, so there should be a good chance for everyone to have their questions answered. So first of all, just a reminder that the information that we're sharing today, this is relevant for the Southern Cross, Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth campuses. It applies to our admissions requirements. Some of the visa information is applicable across Australia, though, that John will share as well. So I am sharing my screen there, and this is just a reminder that we do have regional managers based around the world to help you out. We've got a big team through South Asia, India, also Southeast Asia. And in case you haven't heard, we have two new staff that have joined us in Australia. We've got Laura Chen, who's based on our Sydney campus, and we've got Maria with us in Melbourne. Both of them have been with us for a month now. So if any of you have offices in Australia, or you're looking for support specifically from those campuses, please get in touch with Laura and Maria. Just a final reminder as well, there is still a chance for your students to get in for our mid-year intake. If they've already got an offer letter, they can submit their genuine student or their GTE documents all the way through until the 17th of May. So we encourage you to do that. Just got a little bit of background noise there. Okay, that's sounding better. Thanks, everyone. Just a reminder to keep yourself on mute if you can. All right. A bit of an update for those of you that aren't aware. We recently launched a very popular program in Sydney and Melbourne. Now, this program is very good for students that are already onshore in Australia. It's called a Graduate Diploma of Education. It's a one-year course. If a student has a bachelor or a master's degree, it's a really good opportunity for them to get a qualification in an area that has a very, very large number of jobs available in Australia. So the tuition fees are quite affordable. They're about $29,400. There are scholarships available, so the course is only about $24,000. It's a very good option for students that are in Australia and they're looking to get into a career where there's lots of job vacancies available. All right. Interesting input from there. All right, just a little bit of an update on what's happening with visas in Australia. My Hindi is not very good. Just try and mute them. There we go. Okay, here's a bit of a chart about what's been happening with visas in Australia over the past couple of years. Now, every year, you'd be aware that the visa rates go up and down a little bit. This red line shows the visa grant percentage for student visas for students coming into Australia month by month. Now, the latest data that's available is for March, and you'll see from that the visa grant rate has dropped right down again below 70% for March. So what that means is at the moment, it is quite hard to get a student visa to come to Australia, but they are still granting student visas. If you can find the right profile of student and you can submit a good quality visa application, there is still a good chance to get a visa, but it is much harder than it's been in the past. That's why we're running this training today, to give you an idea of what kind of student you need to select, and also how to put in the best quality visa application. But you can see from this that the Australian visa grant rates are the lowest that they've been for the last 5 years, which means it is quite tricky to get a visa to Australia. What we're seeing on the ground down here in Australia, lots of news articles about how the government is trying to reduce the number of international students in Australia. You're seeing some regional universities having to get rid of some of their staff. You're seeing other universities that had thousands of students now only able to recruit a couple of hundred students. So it's tough in Australia for universities. All of them are trying to protect their risk rating. A lot of universities moved to EL2 recently, and a lot of universities may also move to EL3 after the data comes out in June. So it's not just Southern Cross that's being pretty tough. A lot of universities are. So with that as a background, I'll hand over to my colleague, John Crowder in Melbourne. John's going to run us through some student visa application tips. So over to you. Thanks, John.
Oopsie.
There you
Thank
go.
you. Sorry, everyone, I was muted then. Good afternoon to you all, and just give me one moment while I share my screen. Okay. All right, so I will be going through a range of GSR, or genuine student requirement, issues this afternoon with you, and giving some tips on lodging a successful visa application that we hope will help you all. As Adam said, getting a visa at the moment is harder than it has been in the past, but it is not impossible. It really comes down to your knowledge and your experience in preparing a well-prepared visa application and following the instructions according to immigration's requirements. And I will be going through that. Immigration has obviously become a lot tougher. It is very important at this time that we do everything we can to make the Department of Home Affairs consider us, consider our students, consider you as our agents as being quality providers who present applications to them in a way that they want them to be presented. That gives the highest chance of success in your visa application. So I'll be going through some of that.
Yep.
Firstly, I'm going to look at the financial requirements. Now, I can tell you that myself and some of my colleagues from our main campus met with the department last week. The department has sent representatives around to all of the universities and higher education providers in Australia, and they were visiting us last week. We asked them a lot of questions. I then had a follow-up meeting with them myself on Friday last week to clarify some further questions that we had. What has become very evident is that there is now a significant focus on financial requirements. You will all be aware that the financial requirements have become tougher. And as Adam said, Southern Cross University is not the only university that is toughening up on these requirements. I think you will find after immigration has been around and spoken to everyone, you will see a general tightening across the
participants 698.
So It is important that you understand what is required and what immigration is looking at in terms of financial requirements. It has become tougher. It is important that students are able to prove that they have the financial requirements necessary and that they are able to prove genuine access to those finances. So we'll be going over that now. Firstly, you may or may not be aware that the department has just released the new annual living costs for students applying for a student visa. The Minister for Home Affairs made this announcement yesterday on the 8th of May, and we have been advised that all visa applications lodged on or after the 10th of May 2024, that is tomorrow, will be subject to the new annual living costs outlined below. A new legislative instrument will be released and the department website will be updated if it hasn't been already. So as you were aware, there was an update in October last year where the cost of living for a single student went up from approximately $21,000 to $24,500. It has now been increased to $29,710 per annum for a single student. If the student has a dependent spouse, they will be required to provide evidence of an additional $10,394, and for each dependent child, an additional $4,449. So that is a significant jump from $24,500 to almost $30,000. As I said, this will come into effect from tomorrow. So all students who have not applied for a student visa by close of business today, in effect, will be subject to these new living costs. We will be going back and reassessing all applications in the pipeline against this new criteria if they have not already accepted their offer and applied for a visa. So that is the first thing to be aware of. The next thing on the list, as I said earlier, there is a focus on financials and genuine access to funds. This is something that none of us can get away from. We need to make sure that students are providing adequate evidence of their funds. So under the GSR, applicants are required to provide evidence that they or their financial sponsors meet the financial requirements for study in Australia. And the emphasis will strongly be on demonstrable funds. Now, what do I mean by that? Demonstrable funds are those which can be proven. The department has made it very clear that applicants who are attempting to meet the financial requirement through cash will very likely have their visas refused. So we will not be accepting cash finance. Could people please stop drawing on the screen, please? That is not necessary. You will get a copy of the presentation, so please don't draw on the screen. There will be genuine, we will not be accepting cash as evidence of funds unless that cash is deposited into a bank account. There will be a minimum period of time that bank accounts must be kept for personal savings. That is a minimum of 6 months. For business income, that is a minimum of 12 months. Large cash deposits that are put into a bank account must be accounted for. In other words, we need to know where those cash funds have come from. You will need to provide evidence of the source of cash deposits. We will also require official evidence of funds. This means evidence in the form of tax documents or other official government documents proving income. You will see on the immigration website, when it is updated, they will state very clearly that they will not accept only bank statements as evidence of funds if there is no evidence of where those funds have come from. So it is all about official evidence for the source of funds. And we will also need to be able to prove genuine access to funds. So not only must students show that they have enough finances to study in Australia, but they must prove that they have genuine access to those funds. Now, unfortunately, we have been advised that in a number of countries, there has been an increased incidence of fraud. This is fraud even from banks, where banks are issuing loans that are not genuine loans, where students are providing evidence of financials that are not genuine and that are fraudulent. So for that reason, the department is becoming a lot stricter and expecting us to scrutinise these documents a lot more closely. So we will be making all efforts to verify all funds with the source in the source country. So SCU financial requirements. We will outline, I'll go through this very quickly. This information is on our online tool, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. We have a lot to get through this afternoon. But in general, we do not accept finances from agricultural sources unless those agricultural funds can be proven through a tax document, an ITR, or something along those lines. If farmers are exempt from paying taxes in your country, we will not be able to accept those funds without official evidence of those finances. Finances from business activity must be accompanied by evidence of regular deposits into a bank account for at least 12 months, plus evidence of personal savings for at least 6 months, and official evidence of taxes paid to the government verifying the business income. So you will notice on the immigration website, they are saying they will not just accept bank statements. It must be in conjunction with official tax documents or other provable sources, government sources. If funds have been transferred from a business account to a personal account, we must receive evidence of that transfer to show where the funds have come from. Financials from rental income must be supported with an official copy of the rental agreement, clearly outlining the rental amount, plus evidence of monthly rental payments being paid into a bank account for at least 12 calendar months. So if the student's sponsor is renting out a property for $1,000 a month, we would expect to see $1,000 per month deposited into a bank account. We will not accept anything less than that. If the applicant cannot meet that requirement, we cannot accept rental income. We have also been advised that there has been a significant increase in the number of students claiming rental income from some countries. The government is looking at this very closely, and we will be limiting the amount of rental income that a student can claim to potentially no more than 20% of the total annual income requirement. So if the annual income requirement is $25,000, we would not accept more than 20% of that in the form of rental income. And that rental income must be provable in the way I've just mentioned. As I said earlier, cash deposits must include evidence of the source of funds. So we accept evidence of finances in the form of either savings or an education loan or a combination of both. We do not accept finances which are 100% proceeds from the sale of property. So if the student is financing their studies through the sale of property, we will accept up to 80% of such funds. The remainder needs to be made up of savings for at least 6 months. All income sources must be backed up with official evidence, such as regular bank deposits, tax assessments, etc. The student must be able to provide evidence that they have genuine access to funds. Their financial sponsors need to meet the minimum income requirement, and we may request evidence of the sponsors' other financial commitments, such as education costs for other dependent children. So it has become quite tough. We do need to look very closely at the student's financial situation and have evidence that the finances are genuine. So who can be a sponsor? After speaking with immigration, we are comfortable with the settings that we have. Immigration has advised that the further removed the sponsor is from the student, the less likely they are to consider that sponsor as genuine. So we will accept parents, grandparents, spouse, and parents-in-law for married applicants. Those are generally the only financial sponsors we will accept. There are some exceptions, and I will go over those in a moment. Financial sponsors must provide evidence that they meet the minimum annual income requirement of $25,000 Australian for a single applicant and 30,000 Australian dollars for married applicants. So that someone asked earlier in the chat, what is the minimum income requirement? That is the minimum income requirement there, 25,000 Australian dollars per year for a single applicant or $30,000 for married applicants. The sponsor eligibility. So a student can have a maximum of 2 financial sponsors. If parents are sponsoring separately, so if the mother is sponsoring and the father is sponsoring from separate finances, we will consider them as one sponsor. So the mother has her own income, the father has his own income, they are sponsoring the student, we will consider that as one sponsor. So technically a student could have their mother, their father, and their grandfather and still be considered 2 sponsors. So mother and father together are considered one. We do not accept financial sponsorship from aunts or uncles or siblings unless one of the following situations can be proven. Number 1, the student is an orphan. So both parents have passed away and their aunt, uncle, or sibling has been responsible for their care, and this can be proven. Number 2, one parent is deceased. So let's say the father has passed away, and they can provide evidence that their aunt, uncle, or sibling has been providing financial support to the family on an ongoing basis. We would consider that on a case-by-case basis. Thirdly, if the aunt, uncle, or sibling is an Australian permanent resident or citizen, not a temporary resident. They must be permanent resident or citizen, living and working in Australia, and can provide evidence that they meet the minimum annual income requirement below, we will accept those. So if the applicant's sponsor is an Australian relative, they must meet the minimum Australian income requirement of $72,465 in the 12 months immediately before their application, or if they are bringing family members with them, that sponsor must earn a minimum of 84,543 Australian dollars. So again, we generally do not accept aunts, uncles, or siblings unless it is in one of these situations. And if the aunt, uncle, or sibling is an Australian permanent resident or citizen who meets that minimum income requirement, we will consider them as a sponsor as well. If both parents are working, we will consider their combined income. They should provide evidence of the parents' or partner's income in the form of official government documents such as tax assessments less than 12 months old. We won't accept bank statements or direct evidence from an employer without other official documents. So it all needs to be backed up with official evidence. How does the student provide evidence of genuine access to funds? So if the student is being sponsored by someone else, not themselves, they must provide the following documents: evidence of their relationship to the sponsor, the sponsor's identity documents. So we need a copy of the passport or their ID card or something along those lines to prove the relationship. Evidence of any financial support that they have given the applicant or any other student visa holder in the past. So this is really important. Before I go any further, it is essential that you all have a clear understanding of immigration's access to information. You should be aware that immigration departments around the world share information, particularly the United States, Australia, New Zealand, UK, Canada, and most of Europe will share all of their immigration information. I was told very clearly by immigration last week that if you attempt to falsify information, they will know. And this will definitely result in a visa refusal. So if the student has a brother or sister studying in Australia, you must declare that in the application. We will then be required to check that the sponsor, if it is the same sponsor, has access to sufficient finances to sponsor 2 children in Australia. If we don't do this and immigration is aware of it, there is a very high chance of visa refusal. So it is absolutely essential that correct information is provided in the application, both to us and to immigration. If the financial support provided involves a business, we must see proof that the business is operating. This means that we require evidence that the business is registered and evidence of business bank accounts showing active transactions for at least the last 12 months. The business account cannot have a minimum balance. We see many cases where students provide evidence of a business account where there is like 500 Australian dollars in that account. The account will show many transactions over the last year, but there is only a minimum balance in that account. That minimum balance is not enough to prove that the student has genuine access to those funds. So the minimum balance that we would accept in a business account would have to be 25,000 Australian dollars as evidence that this meets the minimum income requirement. We cannot accept a bank balance of $500 and say that that is enough to sponsor a student. Again, please don't draw on the presentation. Thank you. If you're providing evidence of deposits of money, you should explain their source. As I said, if you are depositing cash into an account, we need to know where those large cash deposits have come from, if they're not from regular salary deposits. So salary that regularly goes into a bank account is fine. We can see that that's being paid in. We can see every month this amount of salary is being deposited into the bank account. However, if there are large sums of money that cannot be explained, we require the evidence of source of those funds. Cash deposits will not be accepted where it can't be explained. Where the student has an education loan to cover their tuition and living costs, the loan needs to be dispersed. Now, we are being told of non-genuine bank loans being issued by some banks in some countries. The student gets a bank loan that the bank knows the student cannot afford to service, but they also know that the student will cancel that loan as soon as they receive their visa. The student is then required to pay a cancellation fee to the bank, so the bank is still earning money from that transaction. This is a very dishonest and non-genuine practice, and because of practices like this, we are having to get a lot stricter in how we assess a bank loan. We do expect that one of the best ways of providing evidence that a bank loan is genuine is that the expenses have been dispersed. Now, ideally, the entire bank loan would be dispersed and deposited into the student or their sponsor's account. However, we understand that that is usually not possible because the student will be paying high interest on that loan. But we do require that at least the first year's tuition fees and living expenses are dispersed. So we will not accept a loan where disbursement is less than the first year tuition fees and living expenses, except where the student is using part of the loan and part savings. So, for example, if the student needs to provide evidence of, let's say, $60,000 for their first year, and they use $30,000 from their loan and $30,000 from savings, we would accept disbursement of $30,000 of the loan. However, if the entire amount is coming from the loan, we would expect to see $60,000 of that loan dispersed. If the student is relying on another kind of loan, we will need evidence of the type of security used, the terms of the loan, and evidence that they can cover the costs. Wherever collateral is being provided for a loan, the collateral must come from either the financial sponsor or a grandparent. If the collateral is from a grandparent and not the direct sponsor, we need evidence of the financial capacity for both the sponsor and the grandparent for servicing the loan. Okay. So again, where a bank loan is taken, we accept a DTI or debt to income ratio of 30 or below. This is because, again, we have been advised that it is very unlikely a student would be granted a visa where they have a very large bank loan and their financial sponsor has a low to moderate income. So for example, if the student is taking out a 60,000 Australian dollar bank loan and their sponsor earns only 10 or 15,000 Australian dollars per year, the debt to income ratio is too high. And it would be considered that such a loan is not sustainable. So we have put in place a DTI of 30%. So the formula for the DTI is listed there. So it is the total annual loan repayment divided by the total annual income times 100, and that will give you your DTI percentage. Students cannot have 100% bank loan. For most countries, we will allow a maximum of 80%. And again, I spoke to immigration about this last week. They will not set a definite amount, but have told us that a student's finances appear more genuine when they have evidence of savings history. So to go out and get 100% bank loan will not be acceptable. For most countries, we will allow up to 80% loan and evidence of at least 20% in savings. Some countries are different. So it is important that you check our online guide and check the specific amount for your country. So that is all about finances. I know there's a lot to take in there, and it is definitely not good news. However, we are assured that if we can provide this type of evidence, the student's likelihood of being granted a visa is significantly higher than a student who is unable to provide adequate evidence of their source of funds. I can see someone has their hand up. Please wait until the end of the session and we'll respond to your questions then. I'm going to go through visa applications now, just to give you some tips on what is expected when lodging a visa application. Now, I'm obviously not going to go through the entire visa application form. There's not enough time for that, and I'm sure most of you have done it many times before. But I wanted to give you some tips on what we would consider red flag areas of the visa application form, and where we have had specific feedback from immigration about problems they see with some of the visa applications coming through. So the first thing that I will say about visa applications, this may seem a little bit off topic, but I want to talk very quickly about what we call heuristics and the psychology of the visa officer. What do we mean by this? So heuristics are basically shortcuts that people have in their mind. They are rules that they have in their mind that help them to make decisions. In general, when you are using heuristics, a decision maker scans an application for certain features. What you have to remember about a visa officer processing a visa is that they have thousands of visa applications coming in that they are responsible for. There are quotas that they need to meet. The visa officers are under significant pressure, time pressure, to make decisions. So when we are lodging a visa application, it is in our best interest to make sure that the visa application is as easy as possible for the decision maker. We want to give the decision maker a positive impression of our visa application. Now, I can tell you that I have looked at many visa applications that have been shared with us, and in some cases, I'm horrified by the quality of those applications, particularly the quality of the documents provided. When you are providing documents to the department, those documents need to be very clearly labelled and logically labelled. You want to use those heuristics to your advantage by making your visa application appear grantable at a quick scan. So you provide everything in the way the department wants it done, and that gives a much more favourable impression about your application to the department. So ensuring clear and methodical document labelling is essential. You need to address the GTE or GSR requirements logically and specifically in your statements and documentation, and follow the instructions in the visa application. Don't make up your own rules, such as attaching a separate document. We'll go over this a bit further in a moment. Address all key areas of the application in detail and reference clearly labelled supporting documentation in the document section. This enables the visa decision maker to quickly find the material that they're looking for and make a decision. So remember that the decision maker is working in a pressurized environment. You can positively influence the outcome by considering them. They are people just like you and me. They have good days and bad days. Stress, pressure can lead to bad decisions and errors. So by considering their psychology, you can make it work for you. If you make their life easier, it is likely you will have better outcomes. So you'll all be aware that in the new visa application form, the old GTE statement or SOP has been replaced with the new genuine student statements. There are 5 questions that are asked in that statement and all need to be responded to. So all 5 questions in the section must be completed. Each claim made in each response needs to be backed up by supporting documentation. Immigration has made it very clear. If you make a statement in one of these questions and you do not back that claim up with evidence, they will not put a lot of weight on that claim. So if you want them to consider what you are writing here, you must back it up with clearly labelled evidence. Each question here is limited to 1,000 characters. That includes spaces and punctuation. Please do not attach a separate form and answer the questions exceeding that 1,000 character limit. Immigration has specifically commented on this. You must answer the questions in the application form. Writing a 10-page document addressing these questions will not go in your favour. It is likely to result in a refusal. So please do not attach a separate document answering these questions. You must respond to all 5 questions. Now, there is one question, number 5, provide a detailed history of the applicant's study record in Australia from the date of first arrival. If that is not applicable, you must write not applicable in the box. Do not leave it blank. Each box must be answered. Question 4, give details of any other relevant information the applicant would like to include. We strongly recommend that you do not leave this blank. This is your chance to provide further information to support these students' genuine status claim. So you can write more information in here, and I would suggest making reference to documents that you are going to upload in the document section as well. So very important. Again, please respond to all questions in the application form. Do not attach a separate document. You will note when you get to the document section, when you upload documents under the genuine student document section, there is the option to upload a separate genuine student statement. Now, I have clarified this with immigration, and I can advise, firstly, it is not mandatory. You do not have to upload a separate document. Secondly, if you do upload a genuine student statement, it should not include these questions and answers here. You can provide additional supporting information to support the student's genuine student claim, but it should not be just a longer version of these questions here. Okay, so quickly we will go through these responses. So the first question, give details of your current circumstances, including ties to family, community, employment, and economic circumstances. So as you're all aware, the GTE no longer applies. However, the department still wants to have an understanding of the students' ties to their home country. So what is expected here is that the student comments on and provides evidence of their family, social, cultural, religious, and financial or economic ties to their home country. Now, as I said before, what is really important is that you provide evidence for each claim you make. So in this one section, we can see family, social, cultural, religious, financial. That is 5 potential claims. We would expect to see 5 pieces of evidence to support those clearly labeled, such as a document uploaded named family ties, another one named social ties, another one named cultural ties. This then allows the department at a glance to see this is the evidence related to response 1. You must support your stated ties with documentary evidence and clearly demonstrate significant incentives for the student to return home upon completion of their degree and attach supporting documentation for each claim. Secondly, explain why you wish to study this course in Australia with Southern Cross University, including your clear understanding of the requirements of the intended course and studying and living in Australia. Again, you will see a maximum of 1,000 characters. Now, just so you can see that, I'll show you back to this slide again. Down the bottom, you will see here 1,000 characters remaining. That tells you that is the limit that you can use for each of these responses. You will not be able to go over that amount. So in response 2, the student should show that they have a good, clear understanding of Australia as a study destination and of SCU as an institution and the course they will study. They should talk briefly about their course structure and any particular units that they are interested in and that will specifically benefit their future. What we are trying to show here is the genuineness of the student understanding clearly their course structure and the university they are coming to. They should tell briefly about the campus that they have chosen and why they chose that. So if they're going to SCU Perth campus, why did they choose Perth instead of Melbourne or Sydney? And again, for each claim, attach supporting evidence that is clearly labelled. So again, an example, evidence for choosing Perth campus, and upload that document. So they can clearly see by the name of the document what that is about. Response 3, explain how completing this course will be of benefit to you. Now, this is perhaps the most important question in the genuine student responses. What the focus of the GSR is all about showing that the student has a genuine reason for studying this course in Australia and how this course will benefit their future. So in this response, they should talk about how their proposed course is relevant to their future employment, show that their proposed course is in demand in their home country. This is also important. If the student can't provide evidence of demand, it is likely that this would be questioned. Why study a course where there is very little demand and you're not going to receive a good return on your investment? They should show a strong career plan and how this course will help them achieve their career goals. Include information and evidence of their return on investment and the economic benefits that the course will provide them when they complete. Now, again, you have only 1,000 characters, which is maybe 300 to 400 words to complete these responses. So it is important that you stick to the facts. Don't waste words on fancy descriptions. Just be very factual and respond to the question. As I said earlier, you can upload another supporting statement with the application as long as it is not just repeating these questions. Response 4, give any other relevant details that you'd like to include. So again, please do not leave this section blank. This is your opportunity to provide further information that will help support the student's application. Concentrate on demonstrating how the student is genuine, how much they know about their course and its impact on their future. Again, every claim made provides supporting evidence. And finally, response 5, this is only relevant to students who have been studying in Australia before. You will note that immigration is tightening up even with onshore students. So students who have been in Australia for a long period of time, studying one course after another, going from student visa to 485 visa to 408 visa, and then attempting to come back to a student visa, this will not be possible anymore. So for onshore students, they must give details about all study they have done in Australia, including, did they complete their course on time? Did they complete all of their assessments? So if they have absent fail results in their record, immigration will question that. Why do you have absent fail? Did you not turn up for an exam? Did you not hand in your assessment? If you didn't, their genuineness again will be questioned. Did the student change their provider? And if they did, why? So this is becoming a lot more important, and they should attach evidence for each claim again. As I said earlier, if they have not previously studied in Australia, you should clearly write not applicable in the box. The next section we go on to is the employment section. This is really important. Many times I look at visa applications and this section is very poorly completed. Quite often we will see a comment in here saying the student will look for a job in their field of study. This means absolutely nothing. What is a job in their field of study? There may be many different jobs that a student can do. And by just saying the student will look for a job in their field of study, it tells the visa officer that the student really has no idea of their future career goal or plans. So it is important that you specifically state a job. I intend to look for a job as an accountant or as a software developer or as an engineering manager, whatever it may be. Specifically state the employment that they will look for and comment on whether or not that occupation is in demand in their home country. And again, provide evidence of that in the document section. This part of the application form is really important and can often be the difference between a visa being granted and a visa being refused. Please use it to your advantage and show that, again, the course the student is going to study will have a positive impact on their future employment. So an example would be, I intend to seek employment as a software developer. This occupation is in great demand in my country and pays a decent salary as evidenced by. And then you would insert the details of your evidence. Refer to document and name the document showing that the occupation is in demand, and another document showing evidence of the student's expected salary, and upload that in the document section. Immigration can then refer to those documents when they read this section and see exactly how this course is going to benefit the student's future career plans. Finally, the document section. I have spoken about this earlier. There is an option to upload a further GSR statement. This is not mandatory, but should be used to provide additional information about the applicant if you feel you've not been able to cover everything in the 5 GSR responses. Now, personally, for myself, if I am doing a visa application, I would provide an additional GSR statement. I would not cover the same questions I've already dealt with in those 5. That is a waste of time. I would talk to the student about their future goals, go into a lot more detail in that document and provide evidence and upload that. As I said, do not repeat the GSR responses in that additional document. It should be additional supporting documentation if required. Again, all documents should be clearly and logically labeled. Remember, you are trying to help the visa officer make an easy, quick decision. If your documents are very messy, not clearly labeled, and the visa officer has no idea what they are, it is not likely to benefit anyone. Always refer to documents by name in your responses so the visa officer knows where to find the documents that they're looking for, and ensure that the documents are uploaded to the relevant section in the document section. Sometimes I see all documents have been uploaded under the section identity documents, for example. Identity documents is for a copy of the student's passport and their ID. It is not to upload GT or GSR documents. So please use these sections appropriately and upload documents to the right areas. That is the end of the session. Again, I would just remind everyone that at Southern Cross University, we do require agents to share the visa applications with us in IMI account. So that, again, this has been recommended to us by immigration, so that we can go through and also check those applications and give any feedback as required. So thank you for your time, everyone. I hope this has been useful for you. I will hand back to Adam, and we will respond to your questions now. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Adam.
All right. Thank you, John Crowder. Huge amount of information there, and very useful. A lot of the questions that came through during the webinar you actually answered as you kept going, which is good to see. So first of all, just to remind everyone that we will be circulating a copy of that presentation. That'll be coming out to the emails of everyone that registered for the webinar today. So you don't need to worry about that. So there's quite a lot of questions being asked, and we have about 10 minutes to get through, as many as possible. So could I just ask you please to stay on mute, and we'll go through some questions now. All right, so just starting from the top there, John, there was a question that came in from Pravi that was just asking about income from a rental vehicle. Is something like that acceptable, and how can they show proof of that?
Short answer, no. We would not accept evidence of funds from a rental vehicle, no.
Okay, that's a no. All right, there's quite a few questions about when finances need to be shown for Southern Cross. Nirashan has asked if a student from a level 2 country is applying to a level 2 institution, do they need to show funds in that situation? So I'll just pause before I ask the next part of that question, John.
Yes. So essentially, I think we have to, in a way, forget about the old level 2, level 3 system. At the moment, you're all aware that the government is trying to reduce net migration to Australia. All students, basically all level 2 and level 3 students, we will require evidence of finances for. That is because we know that immigration is looking at finances for level 2 students as well. So yes, we do require that. Are you on mute, Adam?
Thanks, John. There's a few questions as well about students applying from an EL1 country. So Nika has asked, from an EL1 country, do students need to show finance? Manuela has asked, from Western Europe, even though a student doesn't need to show finances when they apply for a visa, do they need to show finances when they apply to SCU from level 1?
So generally speaking, we do not require evidence of finances for students from level 1 countries. However, you do need to be clear on the fact that even though it may not show in the document checklist tool on the immigration website, the visa officer can request evidence of finances at any time. So we will generally not request it unless we have concerns about the student's profile, but immigration may request it if they want to.
Okay, that's clear, I think. All right. There's a few questions about demonstrating how to show what salary they could expect after they've graduated. Could you give some examples of how to demonstrate a salary after graduation?
So I can give you some examples in an Australian context. I can't necessarily tell you how you would do it in your country, but If we were asked that question, if I were asked that question in Australia, I would be looking up employment websites where there are job ads going up, saying, let's say I'm applying for a job as a software developer. I would look on seek.com or something like that to look for software developer jobs, and generally speaking, those jobs would advertise the salary that they are providing. That gives you a general indication of what a new graduate can expect from a job. That is one way. Another way, a bit old-fashioned now, but some countries still have it, a job section in local newspapers where they're advertising jobs, where you may see jobs advertised with a salary. You might have, depending on the country you come from, you might be able to get government data that shows the average income for students in for particular occupations. Again, that would be considered relevant evidence. Those are just some examples.
Okay, good one. Thanks, John. In terms of the recent changes to the living costs in Australia, you mentioned that they've been increased for the second time in at least the last year, or a little bit less. Has the income that a sponsor is required to have, has that increased as well?
No, we have not yet increased the minimum income requirement. I have specifically spoken about this to immigration. They indicated that the level that we are currently asking for is considered satisfactory at the moment. We will continue to monitor that, and if we see any issues, we may need to adjust accordingly, but at this stage it stays as is.
Good one. Thanks, John. And just related to that previous question about demonstrating a graduate salary, I think Satish Gupta has very helpfully put a web link into the chat there, labourmarketinsights.gov.au. So that looks like an Australian government website that will give some indications of postgraduate salaries, which is useful. Just related to sponsors, two questions. Can a sponsor be retired, and is there an age limit on sponsors? That's from Fatima and Brian.
Okay, I'll answer the second one first. That's an easier one. There is no age limit on sponsors as long as the sponsor can meet the sponsorship requirements. So they would still need to meet the minimum income requirements. So if they're 80 and they're still working and they can meet those income requirements, there is no restriction there. Can they be retired? That really depends on the country they're coming from and whether they have retirement benefits. So if they are retired and receiving a significant pension, and that pension meets the minimum income requirements, we would accept that. In fact, pensions and this type of income are considered stable because unlike a job, you may lose a job, but you don't lose your pension until you pass away. A pension is considered stable, so we would accept a retiree as long as they met the minimum income requirement.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks, John. A question just popped up from Pratibha, and I think you answered this before. For students who apply before the 10th of May, are the old living expenses applied, or are the new ones applied? And I think we need to make this distinction between applying to SCU and applying for the visa, right? It's at the point they apply for the visa. It's from the 10th of May onwards, they need to show the new costs. Is that right?
Is correct. So the new cost of living requirements will apply to all students who lodge a visa from tomorrow, the 10th of May. If they have already lodged a visa application, then it is under the previous amount.
Okay, good one. Thanks, John. There's a question from Afnan who's requesting information on the minimum financial requirements for students from Lebanon, which is quite a specific meeting. So what I'll do is I'll just post into the chat box now a link to the Genuine Student and Admissions Guide to Southern Cross. For Sydney, Melbourne, Perth campus, you can look up all the information on requirements by country. Wherever your student is, you can put in there, or their nationality, you can put that in, and it tells you exactly how much funds are required from there. All right, I think we have time for just one more question. We'll go with that one. There's a question here about under 18 students. From Prava, does Southern Cross accept under 18 students, and is there any additional requirements for those students applying?
So that's a very easy one. No, we don't. The reason for that, so let me clarify. We will accept an application from a student who is under 18, but we will not issue a COE for them until they turn 18. So we do not take on welfare arrangements for underage students. So yes, they can apply, but we won't issue the COE until they turn 18.
Good one. All right. Thank you, John. I think we've hit our time limit there. So I'd just like to thank John for his very insightful presentation today. Lots of useful information. John, would you like to wrap up with any final comments or advice for the attendees?
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, look, so again, everyone, I know that it's not great news, but it's not the end of the world either. We do expect to see a lower number of visa grants in the coming months. But for those of us who have been in the industry for a long time, we've seen this happen before. We're sort of at the low end of the cycle now. We will start to see some rebound. There is an election in Australia next year, and a lot of this is motivated by that election. We do expect to see things starting to improve, hopefully by the end of the year. So the light will certainly shine through, as long as we can provide evidence to the level that immigration wants. There should be no reason that we can't get visas through. So what you need to get clearly in your minds is, I know it's difficult because we hear, even immigration said to me, we understand in many of your countries, people don't pay tax. Unfortunately, the sentiment is, well, if they don't pay tax and they can't prove their income, there's nothing we can do about it. We cannot accept cash. They must be able to prove their income. If they can prove their income, there's no problem. So that's all I'd say there, Adam. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Good one. Thank you very much again, John Crowder. Thanks, everyone, for attending. We will send out the PowerPoint afterwards. So thanks for spending your time with us. Remember, you can still get students into the July intake. Send in the genuine student docs by the 17th of May. We'll speak to you all soon. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.